Story 1, Pokémon Black. I stumbled on this unsettling story of an obscure Pokémon bootleg art hack that I thought might be neat to share on here. I think this originated from 4chan, so I've no idea if this hack actually exists. It probably doesn't, but it's still a great concept. Tale: I'm what you could call a collector of bootleg Pokémon games, Pokémon Diamond and Jade, Chaos Black, etc. It's amazing the frequency with which you can find them at pawnshops, Goodwill, flea markets, and such. They're generally fun, even if they are unplayable, which they often are. The mistranslations and poor quality make them unintentionally humorous. I've been able to find most of the ones that I've played online, but there's one that I haven't seen any mention of. I bought it at a flea market about 5 years ago. Here's a picture of the cartridge, in case anyone recognizes it. Unfortunately, when I moved 2 years ago, I lost the game, so I can't provide you with screen caps. Sorry. The game started with the familiar Nidorino and Gengar intro of Red and Blue version. However, the press start screen had been altered. Red was there, but the Pokémon did not cycle through. It also said Black version under the Pokémon logo. Upon selecting New Game, the game started the Professor Oak speech, and it quickly became evident that the game was essentially Pokémon Red version. After selecting your starter, if you looked at your Pokémon, you had, in addition to Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, another Pokémon. Ghost. The Pokémon was level 1. It had the sprite of the ghosts that are encountered in Lavender Tower before obtaining the Sliff Scope. It had one attack, Curse. I know that there is a real move named Curse, but the attack did not exist in Generation 1, so it appears it was hacked in. Defending Pokémon were unable to attack Ghost. It will load only say they were too scared to move. When the move Curse was used in battle, the screen would cut to black. The cry of the defending Pokémon would be heard. When it was distorted, played at a much lower pitch than normal, the battle screen would then reappear and the defending Pokémon would be gone. If used in a battle against a trainer, when the Pokeballs representing their Pokémon would appear in the corner, they would have one fewer Pokeball. The implication was that the Pokémon die. What's even stranger is that after defeating a trainer and seeing Red received $200 for winning, the battle commands would appear again. If you selected Run, the battle would end as it normally does. You could also select Curse. If you did, upon returning to the overworld, the trainer's sprite would be gone. After leaving and re-entering the area, the spot where the trainer had been would be replaced with a tombstone like the ones at Lavender Tower. The move Curse was not usable in all instances. It would fail against Ghost Pokémon. It would also fail if it was used against trainers that you would have to face again, such as your rival or Giovanni. It was usable in your final battle against them. However, I figured this was the gimmick of the game, allowing you to use the previously uncapturable ghosts. And because Curse made the game so easy, I essentially used it throughout the whole adventure. The game changed quite a bit after defeating the Elite Four. After viewing the Hall of Fame, which consisted of Ghost and a couple of very under-leveled Pokémon, the screen cut to black. A box appeared with the words "Many years later." It then cut to Lavender Tower. An old man was standing looking at tombstones. You then realized this man was your character. The man moved at only half of your normal walking speed. You no longer had any Pokemon with you, not even Ghost, who up to this point had been impossible to remove from your party through depositing in the PC. The overworld was entirely empty. There were no people at all. There were still the tombstones of the trainers that you used curse on. However, you could go pretty much anywhere in the overworld at this point, though your movement was limited by the fact that you had no Pokemon to use HMES, and regardless of where you went, the music of Lavender Town continued on an infinite loop. After wandering for a while, I found that if you go through Diglett's cave, one of the cuttable bushes that normally blocks the path on the other side is no longer there, allowing you to advance and return to Pallet Town. Upon entering your house and going to the exact tile where you start the game, the screen would cut to black. Then a sprite of a Caterpie appeared. It was replaced by a Weedle, and then a Pidgey. I soon realized, as the Pokemon progressed from Rattata to Blastoise, that these were all the Pokemon that I had used to curse on. After the end of my rival's team, a youngster appeared, and then a bug catcher. These were the trainers I had cursed. Throughout the sequence, the Lavender Town music was playing, but it was slowly decreasing in pitch. By the time your rival appeared on screen, it was little more than a demonic rumble. Another cut to black. A few moments later, the battle-esque ring suddenly appeared. Your trainer sprite was now that of an old man, the same one as the one who teaches you how to catch Pokemon in Viridian City. Ghost appeared on the other side, along with the words Ghost wants to fight. You couldn't use items, and you had no Pokemon. If you tried to run, you couldn't escape. The only option was fight. Using fight would immediately cause you to use struggle, which didn't affect Ghost, but did chip off a bit of your own HP. When it was Ghost's turn to attack, it would simply say, eventually, when your HP reached a critical point, Ghost would finally use Curse. The screen cut to black a final time. Regardless of the buttons you pressed, you were permanently stuck in this black screen. At this point, the only thing you could do was turn the game off when you played again. New game was the only option. The game had erased the file. I played through this hacked game many times, and by time the game ended with this sequence, several times I didn't use Ghost at all, though he was impossible to remove from the party. In these cases, it did not show any Pokemon or trainers and simply cut to the climactic battle with Ghost. I'm not sure what the motives were behind the creator of this hack. It wasn't widely distributed, so it was presumably not for monetary gain. It was very well done for a bootleg. It seems he was trying to convey a message, though it seems I am the sole receiver of this message. I'm not entirely sure what it was. The inevitability of death, the pointlessness of it. Perhaps he was simply trying to morbidly inject death and darkness into a children's game. Regardless, this children's game has made me think, and it has made me cry. Story to the Lonely Stars, Houston. Come in, this is UN Space Station Libra. Come in, Houston. No reply, just like every other time. I throw the receiver in disgust, the weightless environment causing it to float mockingly in front of my face at the end of its retention strap. I'm bathed in the soft red glow of emergency lights that serve to illuminate every inch of my tiny cell. I take a deep breath to calm my nerves before returning to fiddle at the maintenance panel. I've been in here for 2 weeks now. Libra was designed as the successor to the International Space Station. Typically, there is a minimum 2 crew on board at any one time. I was supposed to be out of here 3 weeks ago with the British and Chinese astronauts who came up with me, but unfortunately the replacements had some mechanical complications, and then nasty weather delayed the Moscow launch another week. Even so, they should have been here days ago. You sure you'll be all right up here by yourself, mate? Sure, somebody's gotta keep the lights on. Besides, the Ruskies will be here soon. Just have a drink for me when you get landside. Yeah, I expect I'll have to. Gods, I was ready to spend 7 to 10 days by myself on the station, waiting for the Russians to get their act together and get me my ride home. I'd done some time in an isolation chamber during my training, so I knew how to handle being stuck in a confined space with myself. The trick is to not listen to the voices. The station itself isn't roomy, but it has 5 different modular compartments, more than enough space for one person to not feel enclosed. Even better, every module except for the emergency cell has specially reinforced portholes, giving magnificent views of the Earth far below. It was Photo S of this breathtaking panorama that had first driven me into the NASA program almost 20 years ago. So what better way to spend a week than by gazing at the world in all its glory? Hence our planned experiments were complete. Other than basic maintenance, that's exactly what I spent the first several days doing. I could lose myself for hours watching the blue water and brown land fly by underneath, the sun rising and setting every time I completed an orbit. Then came the event. 5 days into my lonely vigil, I'd been roughly woken by a blaring alarm. Austin was trying to reach me, and they needed me now. What's going on? Houston. Weird readings. Libra. Satellites register some sort of anomaly we're just now picking up. Don't know if it's solar flares, some kind of fuel left behind by a passing comet, or something else. We'll be moving into the area within the hour. There's no telling how the systems are going to respond. Better button up in the emergency cell until we're through. How long will that be? Don't know. We'll be in touch. It was good advice. Alarms started sounding almost exactly 60 minutes later, and abruptly whole sections of the station's instrument panels started shutting down. I was able to keep track of everything that was going on from the master controls in the emergency cell, so I knew exactly when power to the station completely cut out. There was a tense 5 to 10 seconds before the emergency batteries kicked in. Then, with a soft whine, they powered up the lights I'd been basking in ever since. I paused my work at the maintenance panel. For the 1,000th time, I take out the photo of my wife and daughter. They're both smiling, holding each other close. Are you going to space again? Daddy, yes, honey, but not for too long this time. I don't want you to go. Don't worry. I'll be back before you know it. The emergency batteries are designed to provide minimum function, pretty much just life support and basic communications. Theoretically, they'll last long enough that I'll have to be more concerned with running out of food and recycled water before worrying if they're going to run dry. But I'm blind and deaf in here. The communications are rudimentary, designed to run on almost no power. so it's small wonder I haven't been able to reach Houston. I have to do something. I can't even see outside since the emergency cell was designed specifically without any kind of viewport. The walls are starting to close in, and in a cell this small there's not much room to shrink. At least the voices haven't started yet. As I said, the trick is to avoid them, but in here there's no ray to run, nothing to distract my mind. The main system is powered by exterior solar panels. The system had been tested and retested to automatically restart in the event of a catastrophic failure, but when it counted, something stopped the reset. After a day or two, I decided to take matters into my own hands and pop the cover of the maintenance panel. After 2 weeks, I've gotten exactly 0 response from my efforts. As I put the photo of my family back in my pocket, the fear and unfairness of it all momentarily get the better of me. Damn it, I was supposed to be home weeks ago. In frustration, I hit the panel as hard as I can with my open hand. Amazingly, that does the trick. With a click and a whir, the red lights shift to white, and the instrument panels begin powering up to their fully operational state. Ecstatic, I throw myself across the cell to the communication array. Houston, Houston, come in. This is Space Station Libra. I try the LEN for 20 minutes. Still no response. What the hell is going on? A gnawing pit is growing in the base of my stomach. While the system was down, I could make excuses for the radio silence, use them to keep the panicky feeling to a dull roar, but now I have to get out of this stupid cell. I may not be able to talk to the people down there, but at least I can watch them. If I imagine hard enough, maybe I'll see my little girl looking to the sky to see if she can spy the station as it passes overhead. I unseal the airlock and move to the next module. I chuckle to myself. Maybe I'll be able to see my replacement's shuttle. I peer through the viewport. Then, frantically, I move from module to module, looking through each porthole in turn, the pit growing deeper with each passing moment. He doesn't want you to go. She's a kid. Of course she doesn't want me to go. I don't want you to go either, I know, but I know you will anyway, and I won't stop you. I love you, babe. I love you too. Always and forever. It takes the station's computer 2 hours to identify our position. Finally, it finds enough known stars to triangulate where we are, exactly where we should be 2 weeks after the last measurements were taken. The rest of the universe, though, is a little off ahead of itself by about 1,500 years. In my gut, I'd already known that, though I'd known when I looked through the viewport and didn't see the big, beautiful Earth shining below me, just the dark, empty blackness of space filled by only a few Healy stars. In that moment, everything became clear. I knew I could never go back. Story 3. Pale white eyes. I would often wander around the lake during the night. It was so silent there at IW. I'll just sit at the base of the water and listen to the nothingness that surrounded me. My mind would drift into peaceful thoughts those nights, and I never expected to see anything in the lake other than the pure reflection of the shimmering moon. But there was one night that I'll always remember in my mind. I began my walk to the lake on a cold autumn night. The wind was strong, adrift and pressing on me. I held my head down to keep my face out from the gusts and walked as quickly as I could to my spot. The lake was located within the forest, so the many trees offered nice protection, and from inclement weather, when I finally made it there, I slid off my boots and my socks and threw them to my side, and I sat at the edge of the water, staring out into the empty crystalline form that the lake had taken. As my eyes sunk into the vast escape of the water, I noticed a single flaw within it. I had stared many times out at the lake, and never had I seen this form. At the center of the lake was some type of black lump popping out of the water. I looked closer at it and saw that it was moving ever so slightly. It went around in a circle, almost as if it was dancing around Fr. Underneath whatever the lump was, it had to be living. I had a feeling in my gut. I stood up and tried to call to it, tried to see if it responded. It did. The lump stopped moving. It seemed to turn to me and stay in place. I called to it again and was waiting for it to sink under the water. To my surprise, the lump started to swim over towards me. I took a few steps back to be cautious, but my heart sank when I saw it emerge. The lump began to rise from the water, and I had the sudden realization of what I was looking at. The lump was the top part of a black head of hair. The hair belonged to a beautiful woman who now stood on the surface of the water looking in my direction. Her skin was a white luminescent color that reflected the gorgeous moonlight off of itself. Her hair was long and black and stretched down all the way to her feet. As captivated as I was by her and her wholesome naked body, I became distressed when I saw her lift her head up and part her strands that covered her face. Underneath the veil of black cords was a ghostly-looking face that was paler than her entire body, and her lips were a coal blue. Her eyes looked directly into mine, and all I could see was an empty white abyss. She entranced me, and as she stood still atop the water, I called out to her again, and I began to hear a song. It rushed into my ears from the tress like the wind and echoed through to my soul. The song carried a heavenly key to it and made my body feel weak. My knees buckled where I stood, and I fell down still looking at her. She opened her mouth to imitate the motion of singing, and that was when the song stopped. The song, along with every other conceivable sound, ceased. I could hear nothing. All that I saw was her standing a few feet from me, picking the sounds of music that should be heard. Her eyes were like white pearls in an empty ocean, and as she lifted her right hand towards me, my throat began to close. My breathing was tightening, and it felt like my lungs were being filled with water. I wanted to cough it up, but the tightness in my throat stopped me. Her feet swayed towards me across the lake, and with every step she took, my throat became tighter, and I struggled to get even an ounce of oxygen into my lungs. Then, when she had stepped off of the lake and her foot touched the ground beside me, all desires to breath fell. After me, I no longer cared to struggle. I felt a peace that I had never experienced before. I was like an unborn child still in the womb. Before I knew what had happened, I was at the bottom of a ripping cold lake, holding her in my arms. The lady in the lake kissed me, and my lips felt like they had frozen solid. Darkness followed her kiss, and then the light came along with my ability to hear. I was in my bed next to my wife. Her warm body nestles against mine. She was still asleep, almost like an angel in my eyes. My clothes were soaking wet, and it did not take long for the water to soak into the bed and reach my wife, who woke up startled, scared at first until her eyes met my own and she recognized me. She hugged me instantly. and started to cry out telling. Gee me, I had been missing for weeks. Her voice began to faint from my ears, and all I could hear was the calming singing again. All other sounds were static. A sudden urge emerged from within my heart. As I threw my wife down onto the bed, I got on top of her as she struggled, and I wrapped my hands as tight as they would go around her neck. I could feel her attempt to swallow tea, heat blood and saliva building up in her mouth. The lump in her throat twitched repeatedly. The skin of her face went from a shade of red to blue in a matter of seconds, and tears ran down her face. I could feel her nails dig into my arms, but this made the only squeeze tighter. I held on to her neck until she stopped kicking, and all life had faded from her eyes. Rage and jealousy faded from my body as my arms and hands went limp. Her body was already losing warmth, and sound was coming back to me by the time I had let go of her neck. I heard the birds and wind from outside, and my own sounds of crying replaced them. Warm tears ran down my face and hit her cheeks as I clutched her lifeless body in my arms. I cradled her like one would to a baby. Then I heard the whisper again, "Join me. I await your touch." That night, under cover of the full moon, my body lost all emotion. I was not sad. Anger did not consume me, and fear was non-existent. All I had in my mind was the image of the lady in the lake and her pale white skin. At the edge of the lake is where I stood. She rose from the water at the waist and waved me over towards her. My legs started to move on their own as I stared into her cold white eyes. I sunk into the water as its frigid claws scarred my bones. Then, as my head was completely submerged under the water, I walked to the set of the lake, and she was there to greet me. The sound faded from my ears, the color from my sight, and the warmth from my flesh. One last time I looked into those eyes of hers, and the very thing faded away. Story 4. 3 days ago, I was laying in bed. I couldn't sleep even though I had school in the morning. A noise breaks the silence, a whisper. I heard the whisper, but I have no idea what it said. I get up on my elbows and look around in the darkness. I see raindrops starting to fall outside my window. The faint light of a car passing by creates shadows inside my room. I hear the whisper again, this time hearing clearly the words "the mirror." I get up and walk over to the mirror on the wall next to my desk. I flip my table lamp on to see the crater. It was about my height, maybe a little taller. It had no eyes, just black holes leading to an abyss of darkness. Its skin was black, with various cuts over its body leaking a black stream of blue. Deep down its skin, its hands were scaled with long, blood-stained claws. It smiles at me, revealing sharp, yellow teeth. It raises its hand and scratches a message in the glass. "You will owes it all." I quickly jumped back. I wanted to yell, to call my parents to come in and look at the creature in front of me, but I was too scared to do anything. I think the creature knew I was scared, because it throws its head back as if it was laughing, but there wasn't a single sound. I could feel my body shaking in terror. I covered my head and said to myself, "Just leave me alone." At least 5 minutes passed before I looked up at the mirror. I saw my reflection in the mirror. I was pale as a ghost. My blue eyes were watering, and my arms were so tense you could see the veins popping out. I eventually turned the light off and got back into bed, trying to pass it off as an illusion due to exhaustion. 2 days ago, I woke up after a nightmare about that creature. I stared at my wall for a while and eventually got the courage to walk over to my mirror. I stared at myself. Eventually my mother walked in and snapped me out of my daze. I quickly got ready and went to school. During my lunch period, I texted my girlfriend, telling her about last night. She didn't believe me and said it was just a nightmare. I went home and set my backpack on my bed. I got in my computer to search for anything on the creature I saw, but an instant message popped up before I could search anything. The screen name was yourself. There was no picture. The message read, "No one will believe you, and there is nothing you can do." I blinked. I started typing a message in the box. "Why are you doing this to me? I enjoy toying with humans. It can me laugh seeing you watch as you destroy your own life." I was stunned. "What do you mean you will see?" After this, the person went offline. I closed my laptop, contemplating what the hell just happened. I tried to find some reasoning behind what just happened. The rational side of me said that it was someone pulling a prank on me, but I knew that couldn't possibly be true. The only person who knew about my situation was my girlfriend, and I knew that she wouldn't do something like that. I run downstairs, go outside, and climb my favorite tree, as this would usually help me clear my head. I eventually end up falling asleep in that very tree. I wake up to the sound of scratching. I rub my eyes and find that there is wood under my fingernails. I looked down and found a message on the branch I was sitting on the window. I looked into the various windows of my house to find inside my window was something that looked a hell of a lot like me, but idly different. I immediately noticed that my hands were burned and my wrists were cut. I had sharp, blackened nails. My eyes were a sharp yellow, and my clothes and hair were covered in ashes. I was smiling in a twisted, insane way. I was shocked. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the being inside my window. I eventually climbed down from the tree and ran into the house. I burst through my door to find an empty room. I looked to my left into my mirror to see the creature laughing like a madman. I ran out of the room and grabbed the pistol my dad kept in his room. I went back to my room and pointed the gun at the mirror. The creature just laughed some more. Eventually, I just smashed the mirror with the butt of the gun. A sharp, demonic laughter echoed throughout the room. The laughter eventually turned into my own. I heard in my own voice, "It's time." I felt myself slowly losing consciousness. The last image I remember seeing was the creature moving towards me. Yesterday, I woke up in a pile of ash. I rubbed my eyes to find my hands burned and my nails sharpened with ashes under them. My wrists were recently cut. I looked around. It seemed as if I were in what were the remains of a burned down house. I got up and dusted myself off. Beside me was my father's pistol. I picked it up to find, rather than being hot, it was cold as ice. I looked at my reflection in the barrel of the gun too. See, my eyes were yellow. I put the barrel of gun in my pocket and felt something else move in my pocket. I reached inside and found a packet of matches. 3 of the matches were missing. I threw them on the ground and started walking away. I eventually found my way to town. I found a newspaper and looked at the headlines. 3 houses burned down in mysterious fires. I read on to find that my girlfriend's and my best friend's houses were burned down. Everyone inside died, except for me. It said I was a missing person. I stared at the headlines for a while. Eventually something inside me snapped. I smiled, I laughed. There I was, standing in the street, laughing like a madman at the headline of people dying in house fires. I crumpled up the paper and threw it on the ground, still laughing. I found my way back to the remains of my house and climbed a tree. I just sat there the rest of the day, staring at the remains of my house. Present day, I sit on the rooftop of my school. It's pretty early in the morning, so no one is around. I laugh as I think about the shit that has happened to me. My parents are dead. My best friend is dead. My girlfriend is dead, all by my own actions. I have nothing but the clothes on my back and the gun in my hand. I stop laughing and start to cry. Eventually I remember the words my mom told me. Whenever I was sad or depressed, sing a song that best describes the situation you are in. That always helped me. So, in between sobs, I started to sing a part of a song. My legs are dangling off the edge. A stomach full of pills didn't work again. I put a bullet in my head and I'm gone, 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 gone. Story 5. If you see this building, your timeline might be in danger. There was once a small business in New England by the name of Grovewood & Co. It existed for roughly 7 months, from April 27th to November 22nd in the year 1913. At least that's true for one timeline. I'll touch more on that later. Masquerading as a Cape Side souvenir shop, most of Grovewood & Co.'s customers were oblivious to the store's true nature. Only the rich elite were granted access to their secret arsenal of products. You see, during the brief period of time that they were operational, the company collected, tinkered with, branded, and sold various objects, each one of which had otherworldly properties, giving their owner unique power, supernatural in nature. How they acquired such artifacts, no one knows. On November 22nd, 13, in its original timeline, the building vanished without a trace, not only from sight, but from the memory of everyone who had ever encountered it. Like it never existed in the first place, it seems the building and its inhabitants fell victim to an object malfunction, more specifically a temporal hiccup caused by a time travel device as it was being sold. The origin of this anomaly is more than likely a defense mechanism of the device itself. It would appear that some of these objects are sentient to some extent and can flee when they detect a nearby threat. That's all I'm at liberty to say about this particular event. So, where did Grovewood & Co. unwillingly relocate to? That's a loaded question. The building, it seems, is constantly jumping from place to place, year to year, and timeline to timeline. It's a bitch to track down, but with a little luck and great deal of skill, I'm able to do my job just fine. What is my job, you ask? Well, I'm responsible for keeping the building and its objects from destroying the multiverse as we know it. You know, the usual 9-to-5 bullshit. In all honesty, I'm a lowly offie peon where I'm from. There are people getting paid a hell of a lot more than I am doing much more important work. All I do is tap into the multiversal time grid and post messages in timelines way. The building is likely to show up in the hopes that some might believe me and heed my words of wisdom, should they need them. But don't worry, there are greater precautionary measures in place. This is just a small added measure of protection. Note, so far the building has been spotted in 432 locations. Exactly 26 timelines were discovered to be worthy candidates for the next jump. 25 of those are now considered safe. Your world is number 26. Without further ado, here is my warning. Yes, some of it has been copied and pasted. Hello, I am here to warn you. Your timeline has been deemed a likely landing zone for Grovewood & Co. Though we can't pinpoint the precise date or location of the impending dispatch, we can tell you what to look for and how to avoid total annihilation at the hands of an object. The building will take the place of another building in your town. You won't remember the previous building, and you'll know Grovewood & Co. as if it was always there, as will its workers. Upon entering, you might feel like something's not quite right, though it exists in your memories. Part of your brain may fight the narrative and make it feel increasingly unfamiliar. If you're lucky, you may even recall this post and some of its details. We can only hope. If you're able to gather your wits and swim against the current of your fabricated memories, then congratulations. You are stronger-willed than most. But this is no time to celebrate. The sudden appearance of Grovewood & Co. deems your timeline vulnerable, more vulnerable than it has ever been before. It's up to you, the only person wise to the charade, to fix things. If only temporarily, it's imperative that you relay this fra S.E. verbatim to the shopkeeper. Might you be so kind as to direct me to your written wares? I'm in the market for a parable or two. This is your ticket to the good stuff. The shopkeeper will bring you to a room housing nothing but a bookcase filled with books, published by the Morai Initiative, another entity we are working to locate, behind which is a set of stairs that lead to the building's second floor. Once upstairs, you will find many objects: a mirror that can trap souls, a picture frame that can show you still images of the afterlife, and even a crystal ball that gives anyone who touches it the power of clairvoyance. None of them are worth your attention, save for one. In the back left corner of the room, hanging next to some jewelry, you'll find a golden pocket watch. This is arguably the most powerful item in the shop, though most of its powers remained dormant until the anomaly took place. An object's power and change when used in conjunction with another object. CT. This is the object you need to get to. Remember what I said about sentience. Some of the objects will cause trouble if they sense danger. Walk around the room a few times. Act casual. When you finally do grab the pocket watch, show no signs of excitement or nervousness. On the front of the pocket watch is a large ampersand. On either side of it are GW and CO, respectively, denoting the shop's branding. Clicking the button atop the watch will open its face and reveal to you a single dial and a circle of letters. To Z, these letters are key to your world's survival. The pocket watch works like a combination lock. Spinning the button will move the dial to letters of your choosing. It's very important that you enter the following sequence: right, O left, V right, to left, I right, L left. Though the pocket watch isn't the device that caused the temporal disturbance, that one is still Mia. It does have similar properties. Entering this code will reactivate the anomaly and jumpstart transport. Grovewood & Co. will jump to the next timeline, and you will more than likely have no memory of the events that transpired. That's it. Really, yes, that's it. Moving the building to its next destination is the greatest thing you can do. It allows us more time to perfect our endgame plan currently in dev. Elopement, the multiverse is at its safest in between jumps. The longer the building sits in a timeline, the greater the chance there is of someone messing with the pocket watch or another object in T shop and creating a chain of events that inevitably leads to the destruction of all that we know. Having said that, keep this in mind. If your finger slips or you fail to recall the combination properly, you are endangering everything. One wrong letter, one wrong turn of the watch's dial, and all layers of physical reality and consciousness might intersect, creating a cataclysm that may very well end all of existence. Sending you in is a danger in and of itself, but doing nothing is far worse. Until the problem can be resolved, this message is one of many small hopes that we have. With any luck, we will find a better solution. Until then, the safety of the multiverse is in your hands. Don't fuck it up. The author of this story wrote it for free. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving him a tip. Any amount helps. Visit his donation page today. If you want to feature this story on your YouTube channel, don't forget to follow the author's narration instructions written by Christopher Maxim. Contact Other Stories subreddit. Story 6, The Piano Man. When I graduated from college, my best friend, Diana, and I embarked upon a grand tour of Europe. Halfway through our trip, we had planned to spend 3 days in Prague, but had completely failed to account for poor weather hindering all of our sightseeing plans. As a result of ensuing downpour for our entire time we spent in the city, we found ourselves aimlessly wandering through back alleys and side streets, entering every vaguely interesting shop as an excuse to get out of the rain. On our last day, we found an antique bookstore. Upon entering, we were blown away by the sheer vastness of the place and the overwhelming stacks of books. An elderly woman behind a desk in the front gave us a little smile and greeted us before we both separated and began exploring. The store was impressively large for a seemingly unassuming place. I spent over an hour wandering through the aisles before I found myself in the shop's basement. Upon entering the basement, my eyes fell upon a beautiful old piano. As a well-practiced pianist and having not seen a piano in over 2 months, I was thrilled. I looked around excitedly to make sure I wouldn't be bothering any other shoppers, but there was no one around. Grinning to myself, I strode over to the piano and took a seat on the bench in front of it. The cold of the leather on the seat bit into my skin, but I didn't care. I ran my hands over the keys. Ivory. Most likely, I thought to myself, I could tell the piano was old, and therefore expected it to be out of tune, but was delighted when the chords I executed rang with perfect clarity. "You play very beautiful." A voice cracked behind me, and I jumped. An old man was standing directly behind me, and I hadn't heard him approach. Smiling at the compliment, I thanked him before he continued in very broken English. "She plays very good, but is missing 2 keys. Only 86. I was having a hard time understanding what the man was saying through his accent, and was going to ask him to repeat what he meant, but he smiled again and gestured for me to continue playing. After a few minutes, I gave up playing as Diana entered the basement, laughing at the absurdity of the scene in front of her. I had not noticed the old man leave, but was too busy excitedly telling Diana about how beautifully the piano late to put much thought to the matter. Upon paying for our books back upstairs at the cash, the old woman complimented my playing and surprised me by asking if I would like the piano. At first I laughed, shocked by the offer. However, she went on to explain that the piano had passed through a variety of homes over the years, with no one ever keeping it long enough to enjoy its grandeur. She continued that she had been having difficulties selling it, as the body cave had been glued shut and therefore could never be tuned. She told me that if I could cover the shipping costs to get the instrument home, I could take it for free, as she was just hoping to pass it on to someone more musical than herself. Seeing as we were traveling with nothing but backpacks, I laughed and told her I'd think it over for the night. However, Diana was ecstatic about the idea. When we returned to the flat we were staying in, we did some searching around on the internet and placed a few phone calls before establishing that shipping the piano home would actually be relatively cheap, as I was going to be moving into my very first apartment upon returning from my trip. The prospect of having my own piano was thrilling. When I returned from Europe at the end of the summer, my mysterious piano finally arrived as I began to adjust to my new routine. New job, new apartment, new boyfriend. Playing my piano became the part of the day I most looked forward to. I would practically race off the bus after a long day at work, run inside to feed the cat, and then sit down on the warm leather of the bench and begin to create my music. I remember one cold night in March. Peter was over, and he was teasing me by insisting he had never heard me play. "You'll have to start staying over some more if you want Friday to like you," I giggled, gesturing to my cat, who was vehemently hissing at him. "She takes about a solid month to warm up to people." At Pete's insistence, I sat down on the bench and smiled as the familiar feeling of contentedness washed over me. After about half an hour, I heard my cell phone ring and answered it to hear Diana talking. She was out of breath and excitedly trying to explain that she had found an old photograph in one of the books she had bought months ago in Prague, and that she was pretty sure it was of a young girl sitting at the very piano in my apartment. I told her to email me the picture before we started gossiping about the Bachelorette, but I pretended not to care, so I walked him downstairs. On the way back up to my apartment, I realized I had gotten the email Diana had sent to me. Upon opening the picture, I could see right away that she was right about the piano being the same. It was the same leather-bound bench, the same beautiful woodwork, the same porcelain white keys. However, something about the photo seemed a bit off, as I was trying to decide what was strange about it. Friday ran past me and bolted towards a man at the end of the hallway. "Friday, see, I'm here," I exclaimed loudly as I ran over the man. I was already apologizing. "I'm sorry, she's not normally like this." When the man's eyes met mine, I felt as though I had seen that smile before I could dwell on this. Friday clawed at my leg, and I hoisted her up and carried her back to my apartment. I returned back to my phone and the picture Diana had emailed and took a essay out on the bench in front of the piano to study the picture some more. What was it? Then it occurred to me. The piano in the picture was smaller than the one in front of me right now. As an eerie feeling washed over me, I remembered something I had been told about the instrument months before, and found myself counting the keys of the piano in the photograph. 71. What the fuck, I thought. But then tea hit me, and as it did, a chill swept over me, a chill made worse by the fact that the bench I was sitting on was ice cold. The coldness swept through me as it dawned on me that my piano bench was never cold, ever. This bench is always warm, and that was when I realized where I had seen that smile before. Friday darted towards my apartment door as I heard a soft whisper, "And UW, it'll be 87, Story 7, Jack Hill, Mystery of the Game and Watch. Hello, my name is Sean. I live in a high-rise studio apartment in Philadelphia. Recently, I've seen many arcane events unfold, and I would greatly appreciate any advice. Let me start at the beginning. Just a few days ago, after arriving home from my part-time job, I also go to Drexel University part-time. I decided to take a short tea nap on my couch. Around an hour later, I was abruptly awoken when I heard the sound of a disc being read near my television. I then rubbed my eyes and noticed that the Wii had been turned on. I didn't think much of it. Unusual things often occurred in my apartment. Doors would open and close, lights would flicker on and off, etc. Curious, I turned on the television and was delighted to see the Super Smash Bros. Brawl logo flash on the screen. Months have passed since I last played that game, and I was eager to reclaim my self-proclaimed title as the Brawl Master. I quickly set up a match between myself, ROB, and a level 9 computer player with a random character at a random stage. After the load screen vanished, Flat Zone 2, the stage replay, setting an archaic game and watch console, was revealed along with my enemy, Lucas from Mother 3, before I delivered my first attack. However, I noticed that the name over the char actor did not say CPU as it usually does. Instead was the name Jack H. That's odd, I thought. While I was pondering how the name got there, Lucas jumped to the ledge of the skyscraper that was near the corner of the stage. Suddenly, all in-game music stopped. I reached for the remote, wondering if I accidentally muted the game. While I tried, in vain, to make the volume to RN, streaks of static ripple throughout the screen. "What's wrong with this stupid thing?" I shouted. Then, a second later, I saw Lucas fall from the ledge of the skyscraper, but just before his body reached the ground, the entire screen was inundated with static, accompanied by a loud screeching sound. I hastily fumbled for the remote and shut off the television. Sighing in relief, I headed toward the kitchen. I was dying for something to drink. I made it only halfway to my destination before I was paralyzed by the baleful sight. On the counter lay a dusty game and watch. I slowly crept forward to find a note attached. It read, "You should play this game. It's really, really fun." At the bottom of the note was a sloppy signature, Jack H. Confused and panicked, I darted out of my apartment and stood with my back against my door. I took several deep breaths to regain my composure. Somehow I convinced myself to go back inside. It was getting late. After all, I swiftly opened my door and saw another note on the floor. Trembling, I picked it up and read aloud. "Come play with me. Jump down, I'll catch you." Once again, the note the uncanny signature of Jack H. The lights abruptly shut off, and the door leading to the balcony slammed open. A powerful gust of wind pushed me forward. "What do you want from me?" I demanded. All I heard in return was the lurid sound of a beau's laughter. The wind became so strong that I tripped. I was propelled to the threshold of the room leading to the balcony. With all the strength I could muster, I latched onto the door and screamed. Suddenly, the front door burst open and a voice loudly asked, "Sean, what's going on in here?" Simultaneously, the lights flashed back on and the wind dissipated, leaving my house in sheer bedlam. "Chris," I murmured, catching my breath, "I was just about to have a smoke, and I heard you yelling. This place is trashed. What happened?" "Chris," I asked, "do you have any idea who Jack H. could be?" His eyes widened, and he asked, "W.H., where did you hear that name?" "He's been leaving extremely disturbing notes everywhere." "Why, do you know him?" I asked. His face cringing in fear, he retorted, "This is really bad. Hurry and come with me. I'll tell you about Jack Hill." We rushed into his place, adjacent to mine, and began talking. Jack Hill was the only child of Mary Hill, who lived where you do now, Chris quickly said, while gathering many of his belongings. "As you know, I've lived here for a very long time. Jack and Mary lived here several decades ago. Being a single mom, Mary worked 2 jobs to support herself and her child. She did whatever she could for the boy, but was rarely home to see him. She longed for her son to be happy, and one day she bought him some video game called Fire for the game and watch." I interrupted. "Yes," he continued, "Jack really liked that game. In fact, whenever his mother saw him, he was playing that game. He became so addicted to the game that he skipped school one day to play it. After receiving notification from the show, his mother had no choice but to take the game away from him. Afraid that he would find the game, she explained the situation to me and asked me to keep it. Jack became hysterical. Through he walls I heard him talking nonstop about the game, high scores, and how he saved the day every time. Though I found his rambling disconcerting, I saw it as harmless, that is, until that cold, windy night. That night, when Jack's mother arrived home, he begged her to play with him. "Sure. What would you like to play?" she asked. Then I heard a door barge open, followed by a strange request. "Jump down, I'll catch you." The last thing I heard was a terrified shriek. Next door, I ran as fast as I could, but when I opened the door, all I saw was the deranged face of Jack Hill standing next to the ledge of the balcony. "What have you done?" I asked. He flourished a big smile, one that felt like 1,000 needles piercing my skin, and jumped off the building. After Chris told the story he had finished stuffing his belongings in a suitcase. "Listen to me, Sean. Both of the people who lived there before you also leapt to their death. I refuse to see another life disappear before me. The police may think these suicides are coincidences, but I know that Jack Hill had something to do with it. His rancor will never be put to rest. Sean, you need to move immediately, before it's too late. I'm leaving now. Best of luck to you. You're leaving already? I asked, watching higher. M pressed the button to summon the elevator. He gave me a nervous smile, waved farewell, and descended to the first floor. As quickly as possible, I ran into my room, grabbed my wallet, and left that wretched apartment to Deza. After these events, I am now typing this in a hotel a few blocks away. My student loans can't pay for my stay here much longer, and I certainly can't afford to break my lease. I'm terrified to return to my apartment, but I can't think of anything else I can. Please, if someone here can think of something I can do, let me know as soon as you can. I'm running out of time.